My neglectful dad and scheming stepmom tried to steal my home from my spoiled, pregnant stepsister, but karma just hit them hard. Recently learning how much I make, my dad, who is 62, is miserably self-centered, generally missing. Unbelievably, he chose to evict me from my own house, all in the name of family. My stepsister, Ash, who is 29 and, in their eyes, can do nothing wrong, has miraculously become pregnant. She struggles to find herself a place to stay, as her highly self-reliant aspirations are those of an escort and an OnlyFans model. Now, Dad wants everything fixed, and I'm the fixer. I regretfully had to part from my house and my hard-earned money with this woman since she made all the wrong decisions. The man my dad openly turned off as a duty several times is me. Ever since he learned about my new residence, job, and shockingly high income. Though, he has become somewhat sensitive about our shared blood. Although I'm not thrilled with him constantly telling me who my father is, he also wants to deepen the ties I have with his wife and her daughter. She is my dad's child as well, but I was banished far too early to establish any type of relationship with the woman. I'm glad I didn't, since I would have been somewhat let down. I simply want to remind everyone before you all start that I'm here to let out my feelings. I have ideas, opinions, and sentiments to put down. Though you may disagree, and they might not sound good to you, I am just letting you know regardless since, to be honest, I have no one else to tell. Now, let me present my half-sister, Ash, short for Ashlyn. She is literally making her dad proud. She is about 5 years younger than I am. Dad is delusional, as this woman is out there only serving as an escort, sleeping with a bunch of OnlyFans clients, and my father calls her his pride. You did really read correctly. I suppose he is not familiar with the major deal. Someone is going to tell him, though. I'm not too conservative. I try to concentrate on my morals and profession. When I have the time to get to know them better, I court women. There is occasionally a spark, but other elements also play a role, including vast distance and availability problems. Other times, one finds absolutely no understanding. I try not to spend random nights sleeping with anyone. I ought to wait for the proper woman. I get sick looking at a large body count. Guys displaying it like a medal is repulsive. I'm not sure why. Still, this is what I live by in my own life. Unfortunately, my sister holds the reverse view. She most certainly no longer counts her physical partners. She is now an escort, which personally repels me. Moreover, it is quite harmful as well. Certain guys enjoy performing odd activities for escorts. I have no idea how someone would view working like that as being acceptable. She then posts indecent movies and pictures of herself on the internet in order to profit from it, but she finds little success there. She most likely lacks knowledge on how to start the traffic, but for whatever reason, it is a flop. From what sources am I aware of this? Here is an awkward story. My friend mentioned it to me. Ash asked him if he wanted to have fun after texting him once, following their drink meeting. Hearing the narrative, I had already warmed up a little when the man left with my sister, but he said it was only after he realized she was my sister. He told me she had emailed him the URL to her page, and he showed me too. I'm not sure whether he is speaking the truth. She breaks constantly and begs Dad for money. Hence, I believe she isn't doing very well. I never told Dad either. I couldn't even bring myself to question her about it straight. I observed her answering a call, then seated in the car with an old man another time. He left her flowers and headed off. She would sneak back into the house at strange hours through the window. This became evident when I used to return home over holidays from college. Though I'm not sure if she is still at it, I do not want to be involved in any of it. I'm glad about having a respectable post where I work at last. I haven't lived much with the new family since my dad was disturbed enough to send me away any opportunity he could have, but I have seen Ash close enough to claim she follows her mother, Marissa. Marissa, 58, thought she was really the icon in her heyday. She was really beautiful to men like my dad and used to be a flight attendant, if you know what I mean. She is now a regular botched-face Ken doll. She runs the sort of neighborhood childcare and has hands like those of a claw, nails longer than her lipstick. Odd how parents would leave their children with someone like that. She could poke out a child's eye with such long nails. She is nevertheless exactly as nosy as her nails. She loves to create trouble in other people's lives and opinions about anything. She has more plastic in her body than the sea. In a quite terrible voice, she is as real as phony leather. She affects Dad for the worst. She didn't want to raise a child that wasn't her own. Hence, I think she was a big factor in my dad not thinking twice before sending me away for 8 years to boarding school. Let me then introduce you to my dad. Actually, He is more the main cause of all this. Having lived a complete life, he believes anything he does in life is justified, even if it is far, far from it, since he understands better. He laments having me since I'm not like him. Thank you, God, I am not. My mother was a formidable woman. She looked after my dad well, and clearly knew her priorities, yet they clashed. I should never forget that she used to tell me Dad was just a different person, not a horrible one. He will always be my dad, regardless of what happens. She was a good person, though she didn't want to contaminate my views against my father. He was definitely as intolerable to her as he is now. A few months later, they split and divorced. I was 4 years old at the time. 2 months after the divorce, my dad then wed Marissa. When I reached 5, they had Ash. Later, my mother passed away in a car accident. She was out to come pick me from school, so I can't forget that. She had always been on time. She just missed 10 minutes once, though it seemed to me like an hour. It was only 10 minutes. A drunk driver hit her at a crossroads. He made it. She did not. A few years ago, he got a DUI, and I was left alone permanently. I waited in the school. It took them 2 hours to arrive to pick me up. My dad had come. Hence, I was misled and puzzled. His irritation when he turned to a dead-faced Marissa and asked what they should do about me will never fade. She answered, "Your kid, your problem. Specifically, Dad, you cannot now come and tell me I will have to look after your spoiled child. At last, I have steady work and oversee some side enterprises. Since I turned 15, I have been earning and have worked quite hard. I started boarding school, then moved to college, only visiting over the holidays, so I started living alone 8 years ago. I recently bought a property after working very hard to reach where I am. This is a wonderful, modest house, far better than the apartment I had with buddies. I felt I would never be able to reach this life fame. Actually, I just moved in last month. Although I might not like my family much, fundamental politeness required involving them in a moment this significant. Thus, I asked them to the housewarming as well. Watching his response was quite depressing as he inquired about the furniture, the decor, and the interior designer. He seemed jealous, to be honest, a bit annoyed. When I provided him what I believed was sufficient information, he answered with taunts such as, "I wouldn't know. You never bothered telling me," trying to get attention and clearly show our weak connection in front of friends and business associates, including my boss. 1 week went by, and he called me. I had an intricate job to oversee while at work. I accepted since he mentioned he needed to meet urgently. When I got home, Marissa and a puffy, red-eyed Ash were glaring from the living room, and I avoided her. Dad was in the kitchen pulling beers from the refrigerator. He gave me one, and I graciously turned him down, fearing what he might say. When I asked him what he wanted from me, he furrowed his eyebrows and answered with another question, asking whether I had lately started complaining about us. Not sure what he was getting at, I scowled in uncertainty. He invited me to hang in the living room with Ash and Marissa. I nodded and turned to settle on a couch across from the two. Ash folded her arms. Marissa rolled her eyes. Dad came in and sat with them, facing me, leaving his beer bottle on the sofa table. He leaned back. Then he wanted to know whether I was blind. There was a pause, probably bewilderment on my end and rage on theirs. Before I could reply, he said that I either choose not to notice things that ought to be seen or I am blind. He stated I had most likely become somewhat proud ever since I bought a property and avoided looking at the individuals who really mean something to me. I groaned and asked him what he meant by all of that, wanting that he would be more explicit. He blew sarcastically, then informed me I wasn't disturbed by the dire circumstances in the room. He stated I had elected not to offer or be of any kind of assistance, and that I had chosen not to notice the family was in risk. I obviously asked him what risk he meant, glancing across at Ash, who rolled her eyes and declared she was pregnant. Like any other person, I wanted to congratulate her, but she started crying before I could. Marissa hugged her and advised me to be concerned enough to find out what's happening at home. Dad stated Ash recently discovered she was pregnant, and the guy who caused it had broken up with her. Marissa also mentioned that Ash has decided to maintain it. Hence, our basis for the next decision should be based on that. Can she afford it? Was all I could say. Ash and Marissa stared deathly at me. To be honest, I meant well. I was worried. I was actually ready to help her, but in my thoughts, I had already imagined perhaps they wanted me to contribute financially. Dad then got up and moved over to my side to sit down with me. That's why he called me, he stated afterward. He added that although maybe my mother neglected to educate me how to be a good brother, brothers would throw their life away for the comfort of their sisters. He said he is a nice parent to his daughter. I asked for your effing pardon. I'm not dying for her, but I know my financial input is required. I sighed and asked him what action he wanted me to take about it. He said, "That's my good boy," grinned, and rubbed my back. I forced a phony smile, which vanished the instant Dad said, "You're giving Ash your house." "No, I am not," Dad answered straight away. "Yes, that's what I said." Dad scowled and asked me, "Why not?" I told him I could help with some cash, but the house is mine. Until she can afford it, I can let her share a room free from rent. Dad got up from his chair, then said, "Nonsense." "Dad, it makes perfect sense to me." He insisted, nevertheless, that I not only offer her the house, but also move out and buy another for myself. I contended that if Ash is unemployed and expecting a kid, she cannot even afford to run the house or pay the expenses. Those, Dad informed me, would also be my obligations. Apologize to me? Hell no. Though I was enraged, I had to be polite. Thus, I got to my feet and informed him that it was not feasible and that I would now be departing. I then turned to go. He wasn't content to stop there. 1 week later, he turned up at my place when I was at work. I'm not sure how he entered or where he picked the keys from, but when I returned home, I observed men loading boxes filled with my belongings outside the house. Hurrying inside, I asked them what they were doing, and they informed me the house owner had told them to toss the goods. I said that they should go right away and that I own the house. They should get my belongings back inside. I lost my composure. Coming home, this was the last thing I would have predicted seeing. When I went inside to see Dad and Ash, they still stood there, insisting I follow what brothers ought to do. They ignored my advice to leave. Thus, I informed them I will contact the police. They went at last, bad-mouthing me, applying curses and things. Though I know this is a lot to read, it was much worse in person. 1 week has gone by, and I'm posting here since I kind of feel horrible about it. Was I in error? I feel like they need me, and I shouldn't cut them off like this, but I also feel like my actions for them have limitations. Growing up, their disconnection and lack of concern for me infuriates me. Today, they asked me to lay my life down for them. A bit much? Not sure what you mean here. Tell me. Let me know. I couldn't even get my buddies involved in this right now. You are all I have. Update. Hey everybody, I hope every one of you is good. I posted 1 week ago, and to be honest, I didn't expect the attention it attracted. As the comments arrived, some made me doubt a number of things. Not too long afterward, though, I decided not to break off my family completely. This came about via Ash calling me. I welcomed her call. She told me she wanted to see me. She wanted to tell me a few things. Therefore, she asked to meet at my place, but I was still getting used to the scenario created last time. I urged us to meet somewhere else. She was first somewhat nervous when we visited a coffee shop. She seemed somewhat unlike herself, but generally, she is rather conceited and unpleasant. She told me she had lately been broken off with as we sat in the corner. I answered, claiming I had an idea since Dad mentioned the man who got her pregnant had left her. She shook her head and said Dad believes that. She told me that although Dad believes her boyfriend left her due to commitment problems, in fact, she is the one with the commitment problems. Unbelievably, right? She said she truly loved this man, but he had discovered some things about her just a few days before she told him she was pregnant. She spoke first, therefore infuriating him, even though he wanted to address her about those things. In that instant, he became rather insane and drilled a hole in the wall. He frightened her, she claimed. He then said he was divorcing her and left without hearing her reply. She has been trying to phone him nonstop, but he hardly reacts. He has only once texted her back, advising her to let the child go first and inform him. He will only talk to her at all then, but she has to part from the child to have that opportunity. Now, I know Ash ain't a saint, but this man, this person, really bothers me greatly. She remarked it would be strange to tell a brother about the topics. I just questioned her about them. I shrugged and stated that it's okay if she doesn't want to tell me, since I kind of realized she was most likely referring to the OnlyFans and escorting. She pulled in a great breath and let it out. Before I could ask her what she wanted to meet for, she then told me she had been engaged in dubious activities. Though I truly wanted to hear validation of all my doubts, I was concerned. She told me she wanted to paint and be an artist, but Marissa informed her she wouldn't get a decent life or income from it. Ash was advised she had to start looking for a man right now. She first felt disgusted, as she soon enough began attracting the attention of elderly guys. She told Ash that it was a good thing when she informed Marissa about it. That is, the older males making any money at all, knowing what to do with their money. At the time, Ash was just 19, and Marissa informed her college she would not or could not provide a decent, pleasant living. Ash had youth many would have paid for. Ash resolved she wanted to be a model. She tried several modeling agencies, but none seemed to be interested in her. She then ran into a man in his 40s claiming he could land her a job. He purchased her pricey outfits and jewels for the functions and drove her to gatherings. She was content till her first gig was mentioned. She turned out was selling her time to a man in order to pay for a modeling contract. She spent the evening, as she assumed it would only be dinner. That was it. She did have a little modeling contract where she photographed a little brand. A few more men used her while she was hoping for a gig in exchange, but she was informed they chose not her. She then discovered that the man making investments in her was actually profiteering off of her. She was terrified he would have her killed. Hence, she considered it foolish to face him. She then informed him she was fine with low pay and that she no longer wanted to pursue modeling. He fortunately let her depart without any problems. She then attempted to wait tables in bars, and it proved rather difficult for her. Ash's hard-earned money is exactly what that is. Still, she also mentioned that Marissa would make fun of her for opting for those little tasks. Marissa would explain that women should be taken good care of. They are the beauty of this planet and should just be there to shine and smile like a showpiece, etc. Ash thus began to go out with men just for supper, but she charged for it. She claimed that although many loners out there simply wanted interaction, too many ended up with stalkers and possessive males believing they were owed more than what they had paid for. She started escorting when she realized that interacting with men and having them feel close to her caused more trouble than sleeping with. It worked great until a friend mentioned OnlyFans. She tried to get it rolling, but her editing and camera handling were not particularly strong. She wasn't social enough, thus that didn't work either. It takes a lot of effort. She next ran across her lover, her boyfriend, an ex-co-worker. He returned often because he worked as a barista. Though he was too clingy, she really liked him. He also lacked trust in her and was a bit possessive. Given that she was indeed still on OnlyFans and an escort under his unaware knowledge, he had every reason to question her. Her boyfriend started looking after her with the meager income she made when she stopped escorting and left OnlyFans totally. She seemed good with it. Marissa wasn't. She then fell pregnant, and her boyfriend discovered everything. She mentioned that a couple of the individuals on the list might be possible fathers. Every one of them donated money to help the child and her. One of them had even proposed to her, but she knows all of them are doing so since they believe they are the only ones there, which is silly given she is an escort. She does not, however, tell them straight out that she pays her expenses and most likely helps with the kid. She said she decided to tell me all this since she couldn't tell Dad. Dad believes she has only been modeling here and there, makes little money, and that she had one man in her life who left her. Marissa mostly understands. When he should have stayed, she advises Ash to wed the man who proposed and let him believe he is the father. Ash doesn't know, though, what to tell Dad. She also doesn't want to let anyone believe a lie and wants not to wed the guy since he is strange and ancient. She mentioned that some financial support would be great and that she wanted me to make up with Dad. I asked her what she wanted me to help with. She advised me to consent to what Dad asked and then spend some time away. I could then return when things are less contentious. How then is that a solution? I politely turned down her offer and informed her I could only provide some money. Nevertheless, I wasn't comfortable leaving my own residence. She then informed me I lacked the least bit of decency to assist her out, that she exposed her entire existence to me, and that I was selfish thinking like that. She stated even then Dad was correct about me, and I deserved to be sent to an orphanage instead of taken in when I needed somewhere to live. She stood up and stamped off. Though I believe my response was not too severe, is it selfish, actually? What do you believe her side of the tale tells? Does it support her expectations? Should I trust? She seemed to be speaking the truth, but does it follow that I should follow her advice? Tell me, everyone. Update. Right now, this is what is picking at my brain. A few things have happened after another week. I assumed I would hit the keys and notify you all about it. I appreciate your help on my earlier update, gentlemen. Having folks back up my ideas for once is rather relieving. Still, Dad called me once I met Ash. He wanted to meet with me at the pub to sort out a few things. Interested, I agreed and went to see him. He mentioned he knew how much I was making as we sat at the counter. When I questioned him about why it mattered, he stated he knew I could afford to buy another property in a few years. I shrugged and said I already had a house. Thus this conversation ought to be quite over. He maintained that since I didn't yet have a family, and that single women find it more difficult to raise a child. That child needed a safe place he could call home. I reminded Dad then that Ash had been living with them long enough and that nothing seemed to be an issue. A small child won't harm. I also asked him what she would do, pregnant, living alone in a big house. She needs to be surrounded by others so that she could be looked after, I remarked. Dad surprised me once again at that point. He said Marissa, and he would move in with Ash into my house. My hearing let me realize something. The bartender laughed sarcastically before I could react to that. Dad objected and inquired about what he found so humorous. He said, Ash? She uses everyone, he remarked, then tosses them away. He nodded, declaring he was her lover when my dad questioned him about who he was referring to. My eyes opened. So this was the man. Dad balled his fists and asked the man why he felt it was acceptable to establish a family he couldn't sustain. He spoke angrily, holding his hands up. The man informed Dad he had no bearing on the family issue. He also showed no desire in rearing a child not of his own. Dad pushed him to say why he felt that. He grinned and explained that although Ash still got pregnant, he had a vasectomy last year since he didn't want any children. He also discovered her driving off with several males, following her lies on her whereabouts. Then he learned she had an OnlyFans page. He found none of it believable. That was the last straw for him. When Ash at last told him they were expecting, he couldn't have a child, hence, it verified everything. Knowing this, he told Ash she had been cheating on him all through. She let the truth fly free. While my ears were focused on the ex-boyfriend's voice, all I could see was Dad's face moving from wrath to disbelief to disappointment. The ex shrugged and informed us, showing Ash's priorities. Cash, money, time, honesty, at least love, he owed nothing else. He stated he was unsure whether Dad knew any of it, but he knew no dad would be proud, perhaps ashamed, of a child like that. Dad stiffened his lip, got off the stool silently, and turned away. He texted me later that evening, saying he had to go get Marissa from her yoga session. I'm not sure what happened after that, but I'm sure it was something, as Ash was at my door sobbing the very following day. I wrecked everything, she informed me. To stifle a scene, I drew her inside and calmed her down. I told her I told Dad nothing. It was her boyfriend, the bartender Dad and I had visited. Then she told me Dad advised her to stay at home and stop everything. He claimed he never expected she would turn to such methods and felt disgusted by her. He advised her to pick a decent man and straighten her behavior. He also noted that these days her chances of meeting decent men were somewhat limited. I hugged her and listened to her. Dad had just returned from seeing me when he confronted her, so she stated she was sorry, believing him confronting her was my doing. I forgave her. Then she returned home. She added that Marissa was really quiet when Dad was discussing wonderful women and their loyalty. Like she couldn't say anything while she was raging and telling Ash how terrible she felt. Ash stated it's among the topics Marissa avoids talking about. I asked her what she meant by that. She answered that Marissa couldn't have an opinion since she is yoga. I could only grimace in perplexity before Ash carried on crying as she related what else had transpired. Yoga, she said, huh? That stayed with me. Actually, what do you suppose happened? Will Ash still be Dad's pride? Source? Nobody has approached me ever since. Still, I will see and let you all know. I know y'all probably didn't expect me to get back to you so soon, but I couldn't help it. Update 2 days after my last upload, and I am here. For the ones inquiring, although Ash's ex's name is not important, we may call him Bob. This is the fresh bit. I saw Dad the day before yesterday. I informed him I had made some decisions. I said I was ready to let Ash use a room, and I wanted to assist raise her child. I would be fine paying for the diapers and other supplies, but she needs to start working right away. Dad informed me then that nobody would be with the kid, hence I advised her to attempt working from home or freelancing. This time, Dad wasn't his usual nasty self. He stopped and then let out a sigh, telling me he felt I despised him. He settled on the couch. He was correct, but I probed him about his reasoning. Mom despised him too, thus he said, which was why she never said that. I told him fast. Instead, she constantly stated Dad loved me and worried about me. I told him the only reason I felt let down at all was how inaccurate my view of Dad was. Mom told me all that. Then, from Dad, I sensed only absolute neglect and lack of caring. Rubbing his eyes, he confided in me. He loathed himself in many ways. He stated he liked Mom, but they hadn't known each other long enough to determine whether they were really each other's type. He sighed and added he had to marry her since he got her pregnant, though he never felt the spark between them. She was a good wife to him. He next crossed paths with Marissa. I could feel my insides tingling at that. I remained motionless. None of this was known to me. Dad told me Marissa sparked a flame in him he never knew he possessed. He caught emotions before he knew it. He was quite delighted with her. Marissa became pregnant too before he could negotiate his way through rights and obligations. She was pregnant. Therefore, it was too late. Even if he informed her, it was bad timing. He urged her to wait. He wanted to tell Mom first, but Marissa came to our house feeling nervous. She reported everything to Mom. She explained everything to Mom. Dad took it when Mom challenged him. Mom was really hurt in this quite unpleasant episode. Yet, even then, she remained courteous and requested Dad for a divorce. My parents separated, y'all. Dad had an affair with my stepmom and got her pregnant. I'm not sure just how much worse this dude could be. Dad stopped and glanced across at me. He stated he had to return me home after spending a good year with Marissa when Mom passed away. Marissa despised every aspect of it. Again, driven by guilt or something. She was worried that Dad could put me before their kid somehow. 3 years later, he sent me off to boarding school, and subsequently, I never had to remain home long enough to cause Marissa any trouble. Love makes you do stupid things, he remarked, and I wanted to punch this man in the face, but I restrained myself. Turning back, I found Marissa standing in the doorway carrying a water bottle. She claimed to be just heading to the yoga class. Setting her bottle on the table, she headed into the kitchen. I blinked. Then she was back and was through the door before I could think clearly. Numb, hence I followed her out. I grabbed her water bottle to give back to her. She had already got in her car and was leaving when I came out. To help me relax, I silently sat in my car and gently drove after her. She pulled out from parking outside a yoga club. She turned to glance around her and then began down an alley. She once more turned around and climbed into another car. She kissed and hugged the driver, and they headed off. I was hardly able to blink. I locked my jaw, parked, got out, and entered the yoga club. When I asked them about Marissa checking in, they denied providing personal information. I insisted I was at least told if she were there, saying I was frightened about her. They informed me they had no customers under that name. I returned to my car and waited. I have no idea what came over me, but I started filming when the second car rolled in. Then, a man got out, opened her door for her, hugged her, kissed her, and slapped her, but as she happily headed to the parking lot. Yoga? Marissa, so much is different. I left before she arrived at the parking lot. My dad cheated on my mother. Thus, he is currently being cheated on as well. Karma. Dad has phoned me several times, but I didn't answer. All I want right now is go and question Marissa about it, so I'm going to see what happens. Should I change? Hello, y'all. I believe this to be most likely the last update, and I know it's a week late. Y'all anticipated it to be sooner, but so much occurred this week. I first managed to man up and approach Marissa. I went when Ash was asleep, and Dad was not home. Was she scheduled for yoga that day? She claimed to have it every day, Sundays included. Cooking spaghetti in the kitchen, she was. Who was her yoga teacher? I asked her. She chose a name at random. Was that a guy? I asked her. Saying no, she chuckled and asked why would she take a boy instructor. She had a female instructor at the club she visited, so I told her it was odd since none of the other clubs had female instructors. She corrected me, but her voice startled me, and her hands were no longer swirling the pasta sauce. They told me. I had joined the club yesterday, I told her. How could I know where her club was? She asked. I informed her I visited last time, following her. She let go of a spoon. I grabbed it, and she spun around. What are you getting at? She asked. I then informed her what I observed. She disputed it, as was natural. I mentioned I saw it with my own eyes. She shrugged and said Dad would never accept me. At least he would believe his own eyes. I told her after pulling out my phone and running through the footage. She stood stunned and spent a minute not speaking. Her face then relaxed, and she carried on cooking noodles. She stated it was useless now. She was already preparing for a divorce anyhow. My eyes grew wide. This woman was horrible. My dad deserved all of it, granted, but oh, she's a serpent. She informed me that her sweetheart of 3 years ago is the man she visits at the club when it was safe to do so. They resurrected their passion. She stated they had fallen in love long ago, but at the time, he was wed to another woman whose father had employed him for his business. Though there was a lot at risk, Marissa and her boyfriend decided he should keep his marriage intact and handle his money. He would then split from his wife and live with Marissa. But Marissa became pregnant and, as women should, she was trying to pin a man down for support. She made that decision to hang around Dad. They were seeing one another on and off, But Marissa chose Dad and told him he had to act when she met her boyfriend and got pregnant. She had to handle things herself since he developed cold feet, and that's when she spoke with Mom. She's good right now. Her partner is a widower and has a business, she said. Women should do what they can, kid, and turned around smiling. Her smile stopped, though, as she peered over my shoulder. The next instant, her smile vanished. I turned back to see Dad in the doorway with flaming eyes and clenched hands. He was shaking. Dad awakened Ash then and carried her to the kitchen. "Who is her father?" he asked. She shook her head and glanced across at Marissa. She assured him she always recognized him to be her dad. Thus, she didn't give blood any thought. Pacing the floor, he ran his fingers through his hair. Marissa and Ash were instructed to leave his house. 2 days later, the divorce is underway. At a shelter are Ash and Marissa. Dad has requested me to locate him a therapist, and he has been rather quiet since. I pardon him every single time. Regarding Marissa, her boyfriend didn't bring her in. He disputes having ever spoken with her. Marissa has begged me for the proof I have. She even begged me to consider Ash through her pregnancy. And what can I say? Marissa, your child, your challenge. From what standpoint should I act? Either destroy the footage or hand it up. I'll let others know in the comments soon. Later. I appreciate you joining me and for your ideas and encouragement. It means a great deal.